It's called FORAGER. We're looking at alternative trajectories for demographic growth in Holocene societies. And one of those, of course, is located in the Eastern Baltic, which will be a major focus. These characters here, it's between York, Cambridge, Montana, and Lund. But we've got major partners from across the region, including, of course, Tartu. And the project starts next year and it runs all the way through, rather scarily, to 2032. So what's this about? Well, it's really questioning that big narrative that farming was the real driver of population growth, agriculture, pastoralism that developed past the last glacial maximum into the Holocene was thought to drive population growth. But we see episodes of huge amounts of growth in forager societies before farming. This is in central Japan, and this is some probability distributions. And you can see around 5,000 years, well before the arrival of farming in central Japan, you get this periods of boom and then also bust. So that's the radiocarbon dates, but we also see that in the archaeology, of course, really ground truth through these large nucleated settlements that appear across Japan at that time. So we've got these really huge periods of growth and decline, but it's not really evident what really it drives these, both the growth and the decline. And that's really what the project's about. Just to go into the Eastern Baltic, and this is the curve, very first scan of the distribution of dates for the Baltic. And you also see this big boom and bust in foragers before the arrival of the corded ware and the first vestiges of agriculture. And this really speaks to our case study within PaleoMIX. It's right in that period, and it's an area that we've been working on with Marie and Esther for a long time. And it's nice to see that this kind of corresponds quite well to the appearance of these coneware pottery. So not the first pots in the area, but we get this cultural change and we get this big boom and bust. But we don't know why, right? And that's the kind of point of the project. We're looking at this phenomenon got across several different regions, going from the Pacific Northwest, amazing archaeology over there, Atlantic Northeast with the amazing Karine Taché in the Quebec area, Japan, the Western Baltic, and also the Eastern Baltic. And those are our kind of those five study areas. And they're all in kind of temperate northern environments. So what's causing these booms? And it can only really be two things, which is mothers having more children or people living less longer. That's the only thing that can really drive demography. But between those, there's everything from human agency to environmental change. And I think what we're trying to do here is look at those extremes and see how they're connected through the lens of studies of behavioral ecology, but also through cultural inheritance. And these are really at very different scales. And the project really is to try and link those different scales of analysis together. So me, and this is I'm not often in the lab, and this is a shot of me doing some biomolecular science, and that's what we really want to do at that very small scale, looking at diet and seasonality, but also going to the huge scale, looking at ecology and climate and doing computational models. And we've got some great climate scientists in Cambridge involved in that side. But connecting those scales together would be the settlement archaeology. So there's lots of field work planned to look at things like inequality and social hierarchy, but also with Peter Jordan to look at cultural evolution anthropology. And the success of this project, I think, is actually bringing those different scales to speak to each other. So there's 4 principal investigators, which is kind of normal for a project, for a big synergy project, but there's 37 team members involved in this. So it's a much broader effort. The other thing we're going to be doing, if you want, is connecting these kind of different data sets. So as I said, going all the way from residues, plant remains, stable isotopes, a lot of compound specific work, including work with Marie, residues with Esther, lithic artifacts, so a lot of artifact based studies, going through to human remains, settlements and houses, and then all the way through to these climate models. So it's going through these multi-scalar data sets. Now, you might think this is mad, because how on earth are we going to be able to do all this intense archaeological science and intense methodology over such a broad area? And I think the only way the way we've sold it to the ERC is through this kind of vignette approach, which is taking what I would call, the big data approach, which can be global or regional, and going down to actually the real archaeology, down to the site level. So it's actually taking particular sites or particular regions, sub-regions, and kind of ground truthing some of those ideas that we develop from that big data approach. And I think that's quite a sensible approach to do it. Makes it feasibly, so go region, sub-region, site, and down to the phase. So we've only got 37 sites in the whole project, but actually in a regional sense, it's huge. So we're doing different methods at each of these different scales. So for example, in the Eastern Baltic, we're going down to one of the focused areas for the sub-regions is Estonia. That's one of our key areas, but we're going down to certain sites and looking at phases within there. So that's the kind of way that we can actually sell this and make it actually feasible. I did want to just throw this in. This is some work I really want to do, and I think it's part of the project that allows us to bring some of the biomolecular science together to address quite an interesting question, which is looking at this concept of foodscapes and how those might change as demography changes. So things like assessing mobility, seasonality, how people manage surpluses in the past, and how niches were constructed. And it's looking at the site in a landscape context, but actually bringing the biomolecular science into those different sites. So, for example, we've got a lot of REAP funding for doing strontium isotope analysis for fauna from the sites and also some humans to try and look at mobility and site catchment. But then we can also try and characterize the foods that people are using and build that into this pattern of how people are really, if you like, engineering the ecosystem and how that changes actually as you go through these different phases of boom and bust. So that's it from me very quickly. Just to say that obviously this is the team as it stands, and we've got a whole range of different people from many different countries here, including people from First Nations as well, which is a real bonus to the project. So we've got a lot of links with hunter-gatherers today, and we're obviously advertising soon. So we're going to have a lot of posts coming out, including a PhD, I believe, in Estonia, but also postdocs in York and other places as well. So do look out for those if you're interested in joining our project. Thank you.